Hello, everybody, and welcome to our bi-weekly devcast. What the fuck? Excuse my language. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna just rip. How's everybody doing? Welcome to our bi-weekly Devstream. My name is Matt, and with me is Max to my right. Above me to my right is Mark, and then over here is HB. We should really get name tags. Actually, I feel like that'd be kind of slick. Anyway,
I put them on in the YouTube channel.
Oh, do you?
Watch the YouTube. Yeah, I put name tags on everybody.
Well,
and it changes every week because
our cameras are different.
So I have to every week I have to move them around.
That's really funny. All right, well anyway, we're here to talk to you today about Dead Harvest and other things that are coming in the next update. I think, is that correct, Mark?
Yes. The Dead Harvest is going to be the main event. It's that time of the year again, and but there's some other things that smaller, but I think impactful changes that are coming in the next update. So it's always fun to at this time of the year because we get to do this event where we don't have to. We kind of get to work on. It's our opportunity to work on something that does not have to be as serious as the usual things that we work on are, and we can be a little bit more loose with the features and just do something kind of fun and different. And I think my favorite thing about the Dead Harvest event this year, which we'll get into, but is that I think this year the Dead Harvest event will last a bit longer, I think, and I think it will be sort of a more filled out event in terms of the length of it. Whereas past years it's sort of like everybody came in for a day or two, had their fun. It was a lot of fun. It was great. But this year, we're hoping that it can be a week or two of fun. So I'm excited to talk about it.
It's a lot different than, I think each year we kind of do something a little different. But without really spoiling anything, I think it builds a little bit off last year. If you were here last year for the event, it kind of is built off the bones of that one.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, let's kind of get into it. I think we're all kind of excited to talk about it, and we're sort of talking around it. So let's get into community highlights.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So community highlights, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Great.
Community highlights, if you don't know what it is, it's a blog post that actually happens at the end of the week. It's compiled by Max, and all the cool stuff that the community makes. We compiled that so you can read a bunch of cool texts, you can watch a bunch of cool videos, and see a lot of cool illustrations. But we do a little preview of what's coming in the blog post today in the dev stream. So let's check it out. We're focusing today on our Dead Harvest, and I really like the fact that I think people are picking up what we've been posting out, and Rickery is I think it's thinking about what it can be, what is it gonna be. I really like that. I think it's really nice. People are just trying to figure out exactly how it's gonna play in the illustrations.
So this is based on the teaser we put out last week, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, because last year the zombies were their colors were red, and the eyes and glowing, kind of orangey. This time they're blue and green, so people are like, "What does it mean?"
This is very unsettling. This image, it caught me off guard. I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
Something about their faces. They remind me of some of the monsters in Persona that are they're just really uncomfortable. Anyway.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Man, it would really cool. I guess if I had a different game, we have a top-down game. It's sometimes I would wish to have more control on facial expressions and stuff like that to make cooler emotes and stuff like that. But of course, our camera doesn't render itself to it.
It's kind of a waste of time to even make a facial.
It is absolutely a waste of time, resources, bandwidth, game ticks, everything. But it would be really cool if we ever do like a spin-off game with the camera closer to the characters, it would be really cool to have like some different emotions in the face. Yeah, let's go with the next one. Okay, I love this very much. I'm gonna start with the one by Ham the Spam, which is the Lego one. If you guys are new this year, last year the Dead Harvest, the players had a mech that was unique for Dead Harvest. So this is the Lego version, and it's really sweet. I love it, and I particularly love the Warden player that is made with blocks in the very corner there. I think it's very ingenious. Absolutely love it.
It's worth noting, Ham the Spam actually made a good number of Lego models that I didn't include here. This is just the Dead Harvest themed one, but he made a bunch of Lego models.
Ooh, I can't wait to see them. I'm actually gonna check it out on the blog post. Anyway, and the one on the left. Sorry about that. There was some noise in here coming from my side. And then the one on the left there. I think this is the aspiration of what they want the mechs to be.
It was interesting when he made this post in the creative highlights. He made a comment that like it wasn't like, oh, bring back mechs. It was add mechs to the game, devs. Like you didn't know they were
just more, just extra mechs.
And you can see like that neither of these are the one from last year, right? So
the Colonial
this
one
guy's
is,
gonna be surprised.
Pretty close though. Like if you look at the it's pretty funny. Yeah. And it's all I can say.
I would love to have like giant mechs like these. I think they feel bigger than the one that we have in the game right now. Like they feel like they would be larger by the size of their guns. And I love it. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it looks like they want some mech versus mech type of combat.
Well, I'm reading in chat the Colonials want an open top mech.
I really like. I was just going to say in the Warden mech, there's like a little balcony, which is like very cool.
That would be super.
For some reason,
I didn't even notice the balcony.
For some reason, I really like that, and I don't know why. It's not practical in any way, shape, or form, but it's like just the concept is great.
It's funny because I think our tech does support that sort of thing.
Yeah, like we could totally.
We could totally have like an open area that you can run around on, kind of like the old gunboat. Run around on the deck,
that'd be sick.
And the best part is that then we update the emote system, so we can have like a Mai Tai emote, and then we have like the mechs fighting and somebody in the little deck there just like drinking a Mai Tai or something like that. I would absolutely love that. I think we have to add it and ship it. Anyway, next one, Mark. Oh, these are awesome. These are like just fantastic. Well, Sarcastic has always been really good. Illustration wise, it's just so well done. I really like that I'm starting to recognize the characters now, like more and more. They have like how do I say, like kind of like a personal lore that people keep making their illustrations on.
Is that the Swords of Morrow?
I think. I'm not sure. I like that there is always the warden, the defector there. I love that.
It wasn't just kind of like what I actually like about. He's just kind of hiding, and he's got his mustache, and for some reason that makes him even more dubious.
So good. Horrified plot. I like this. These illustration looks like the ones from, I think, Superior, the ones that like Superior makes. I really like this realistic rendering, and like I think it's sweet.
The cool thing about the top right one by Horrified Plot is we see a lot of stylized stuff in community highlights, which is always really cool. But I don't think we have seen some more realistic stuff, but this is like one of the most realistically, I guess, like the shading on the tank specifically is like extremely realistic, and it's kind of interesting because even the game isn't realistic. The game is stylized to like a large degree, but this is way more realistic than what we have in the game, and it's kind of just interesting to see what that like fully photorealistic, or at least closer to photorealistic type of lighting and shading would look like in our world. It kind of like puts your brain in like a different direction, and it's kind of neat, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good. I think that's one of the best parts of like illustrations and other the community engagement in general is that there's a lot of work on like what it could be, what are the other possibilities, and it helps us like have an idea and visualize stuff. So I actually quite enjoy that as well. It's the same thing. I think that in some regards it's similar to the illustration on the bottom right by Dauntless. That like what would the different uniforms be, like with different reasoning like behind them, like one for the code, one for medics and soldiers and stuff like that. I think that is always very interesting to me. I like to see in all these what ifs, and people like grab what we have and just expand it in some ways.
I gotta ask. I really like. First of all, I really like all these different characters. I think they, like, I feel like in my mind, I see like stories for all these different characters, which is like the best thing you can say about character design.
yes.
But I have to ask: is the Warden guy with the mustache the same guy that's creeping in the other image? Because he's exactly the same person.
He's gonna become like a secret character in the fan fiction world of Foxhole. Never know what he's about.
I feel like at this point he's pretty much canonical. Like,
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know, man, but next one, let's go. I think this is the last one. I haven't watched this one actually.
I saw this.
I'm gonna hit play.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry about that. Frick's video is really cool, but it got flagged by the content ID. So we had to do this. You should check it out. It's in the description.
You know what? This should be the trailer for Dead Harvest this series.
Yeah, we don't.
Just throw that up on the Steam page.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. Like, how would you?
We're
What's your guess beyond how this was made, or HBO
It's probably okay. So he probably made a quick rig, like created the bones. I saw in the beginning that he used Mixamo animations, and Mixamo has access to the dance animations, so he was able to probably put it together. He probably didn't have to animate much. He probably had to do a lot of like fixes to make it work, and like put them together and stuff like that. And then of course he did all the camera work.
Yeah, all the camera, the shaders and
texturing.
everything.
Yeah, everything is him. It's just that like I'm sure that the base animations are done in Mixamo, which is a great tool. I think using open source tools to make cool stuff, I'm all in favor. Clever way to do it.
Yeah, the camera work looks like it took the most work. It almost looks like the actual Thriller, like the same style, right? Like the side and then the pan or the close up.
Yeah, it's both pretty. Yeah, I think this probably, I don't know, probably rendered in Unreal or something like that. There are other engines that are similar. You can just download so you download the animation, put it in a simple mesh. Clever stuff. Very, very, very clever stuff. Thank you, Frick.
It looks real polished.
Really good. I love it. I absolutely love it. We're gonna move on now, but to development update for people that are complaining. This is a short community highlights, and people are still complaining. Geesh, man, you guys have no patience.
Look at all the great work that these people are doing.
It's not like we haven't done 90 of these.
No appreciation for the arts,
yeah,
man.
And like they don't always start with community highlights. So yeah, we're gonna talk about the Dead Harvest review. But if you have, this was like a Dead Harvest centric community highlights preview. There's gonna be other stuff in the actual blog post. So if you haven't seen your stuff in here, or if there's stuff that you are very proud of, but somehow we miss, send me like a note. We'll put it in the community on the actual blog post. Check it out. There's a lot of cool stuff there.
Can we also say that we're going to look for more like Halloween Dead Harvest oriented stuff for the next stream?
Sure, we're gonna.
That makes sense,
we're
right?
gonna try to surface that. Yeah, we're gonna try to surface that. That's a good idea. Forgot about that.
Great.
Cool.
All right then, time to move on to the Dead Harvest preview. But before we start, wanted to just, for all the new folks that are out there that weren't with us the last 2 years, wanted to just give a really quick overview about what the Dead Harvest event is. And it's essentially a seasonal event that started in 2018, where we decided to do something fun for the month of October to get in the spirit of Halloween. And we created what is essentially a zombie mode, right, for the game. And we sort of kept this tradition last year, and this year, even though we were really busy with the core game, we decided to keep the tradition going, and we hope to continue this tradition for many years to come. But it's a limited time event. It takes place over a couple of weeks. And it's sort of just this fun thing that happens every year in October that we all look forward to. And it's a nice break for us. It's hopefully a nice break for players that are probably drained out from the intense wars that go on. So it's a nice fun thing that we can all enjoy together. So here's just some really brief footage from the last year's event, so you can get a really quick idea on how this feels, at least. But let's talk about this year's event. So we mentioned in the last couple of weeks that this year's event is going to be more like traditional World Conquest, with Dead Harvest features layered on top of it. And it's going to be called the Dead Harvest Reckoning. Matt, do you want to touch a little bit on why it's called that?
I think we can get to that later, because I can't really do it without spoiling. So.
Right. There's already quite a few spoilers in this image. So
yeah.
maybe
Take a look at the image for a second, and then
we'll
move on.
Yeah, move on. Let's go.
Cool. So the first thing that is going to be new this year is how you actually turn into a cursed, which the cursed are the undead, the zombies in our Dead Harvest event. So the way that this year's event is going to play out is much like a World Conquest, except that players are able to resurrect themselves using soul stones, right? And these are special items that can be equipped. And when you have these items equipped, if you are killed, you will resurrect as a cursed. The other effect is you can also manually trigger the resurrection or the conversion into cursed simply by using the item that is equipped, right? So we hope that this will provide a new twist on how this works. And the one interesting thing about this year is that in past years, you actually had to respawn to be converted into a curse, whereas this year you don't have to respawn. So when you are killed, you will actually resurrect on the fly for the first time, a Dead Harvest first, which we'll show you how that works in a moment. And they will be produced at Matt. Do you want to talk a little bit about this, since it involves the maps a bit?
Yeah. So these are going to be the soul stones are going to be produced, or I guess produced is the word we'll use at the at the Font of Balor, and basically last year. So to talk a little bit about the lore, now that we know a little bit what's going on. Last year was the Dead Harvest Deception, and you'll recall that it started out where the Cursed were very much a neutral threat against both factions, but over the course of the war, they became weaponized. Also, in the lore of that year, which is now gone, you can't find it anymore. The Wardens and Colonials were studying these sort of strange obsidian stones that kind of appeared all over the world and cursed all the forts. So now they've learned to harness that and basically trap souls of the curse, the different kind of evil spirits that come from the underworld during this period of time into these soul stones that then they can trigger and transform themselves upon death. So that's what you're doing at the Font of Balor. You're sort of infusing these different soul stones with the different tiers of spirits who are cursed.
Great. Moving on. So this is how it actually works. You can see the resurrections happening here in this image. When your player is killed and you have a soul stone, then your player will resurrect as a cursed. And depending on the type of soul stone that you have, you will resurrect into a different type of cursed. And again, this is interesting to me because in the previous years, I always felt like it was a little bit of a bummer that you actually had to respawn to do this. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited that we got this working on the fly this time. So
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the cursed. There's going to be 3 types of cursed. So the first, and these 3 types were actually in last year's event as well, but their capabilities have changed, and we spent more time on the mechanics of each one to make them more interesting. So this is your default cursed, so to say, where these will be familiar to the last 2 years. It's your melee cursed, and they basically move faster. They're more durable, and they have a melee attack that is fast. So this is sort of your stock like zombies,
Mhm.
if you wanna call it that.
These guys are pretty much unchanged, I think, from previous years.
Well,
Is that right?
On the previous years, what would happen was that so one of the things, so the 2 things that are mainly the main difference right now is like, one, the cursed are not a third faction like anymore. Like they're being used by each faction. So each faction. So if you turn yourself into a curse, you maintain yourself in that faction. The second thing is that you don't get more powerful the more you kill anymore. So these guys, these
That's true,
cursed,
yeah.
they're about like second half of the power curve, I would say, of when you start when you would kill people. So
Yeah.
you don't gain power anymore by killing living people.
So another important thing that you pointed out is that because they are they maintain their faction, at least for this curse class, they do look like visually different. So you have
Yes.
the colonial cursed and you have the warden cursed, which was
Yes.
another fun thing that we finally got to do. Whereas last year, because they were generic cursed, we weren't even able to put like a helmet on them as an example, which I thought was kind of like a bummer. So
Yeah.
And
Yep.
here you can see their attack, and you can see you will move much faster once you convert into cursed. So moving on to the second class, this is Matt. Do you want to talk a little bit about?
It's the Avertac.
Yes.
So these guys, we had them last year. So last year these guys were the Naruto run zombies that we had. They were very, very fast. So one thing I want to talk about is last year with the Cursed and the Dead Harvest event and all that stuff, we actually had this plan. The plan was very similar to kind of what we have this year. So we actually got to kind of fulfill some of the stuff that we wanted to do with the different tiers of cursed. So the Avatech this year has a spitting attack that is basically it's basically like a big like blood grenade that it spits that can be fired across the battlefield, and it looks kind of like this. And this is pretty exciting because this was the original plan for this guy. He wasn't meant to be a very fast, super speed guy. He was actually meant to be a ranged attacker. So we're very excited that we're able to do that. But also, they also have their normal melee attack, just like the other cursed.
If he wasn't meant to be super fast, why did you give him the Naruto run?
Well, because we changed him into super fast, and then that made the Naruto. Anyway, so that's the Avatech.
I find it funny,
and it was fun. So the Balor spawn is the third tier, which again he may look familiar to you, but this isn't the same. It isn't the same. So originally, with this character, we wanted a big tank that could like do this big ground smash, and could just deal tons of damage and take a ton of damage. Basically, the tank form of a cursed. And this year, I think we've done that. So the Balor spawn is pretty exciting. Mark, if you want to switch to the next image.
Yeah, are you able to see it? I switched the image. Yeah, so another interesting thing that I do want to point out is this class and the last one, they also have like a melee attack as well. So they're able to perform 2 different attacks, which, as Matt said, this is kind of like the full like vision, everyone's favorite word of these classes which we introduced last year, and this attack here is just really good against things like tanks because they behave a lot like mines, in a sense that they can have a really high chance to track a tank. So if you get one of these guys up to a tank, you can slow it down, and your other equipment and weapons are able to like finish it off. So and these 3 classes will slowly become available as the tech tree is progressed in the game, right? So they won't all be available at the start. But we feel like this year, there's as cool as all this stuff is, we know that the Mech was something that everyone was really excited about last year. So we wanted to return to that theme.
Before we move on completely, there's a tiny bit of confusion in the chat. The font of Balor, the portal that you saw earlier, is where you produce the soul stones, which then allow you to transform into the different cursed. There isn't a level up mechanic. That isn't a thing this year. You produce the soul stones that you wish to transform into, and you transform when you either use the soul stone or you die while the soul stone is equipped.
That's it.
That's how it works.
You do not transform if you are killed by a curse, because these are not the same natural curse that we had before. These are the weaponized version of them. The natural ones that you had like on the previous 2 years, they are not in this Dead Harvest.
How do you get the soul stone? You manufacture it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Cool. So moving on to the back. So this year, there is actually going to be faction specific mechs in the end game of the Dead Harvest event, and the Colonial Centurion is a mech that is reminiscent of the one from last year. We sort of remade this mech to be faction specific, and this can be seen sort of as the battle tank equivalent of a mech, in the sense that it does fire 75mm rounds. It has 2 HMG guns on the arm, which each are independently controlled by players. So there's 5. This is a crew of 5. There's a tank commander. There is a turret operator, which controls the upper half of the mech, and then 1 player per arm, which can aim separately, and then you have the driver, which so it's actually it is a bit of a challenging vehicle to crew because you have to be really well coordinated, but it ends up being quite a force on the battlefield. It's if you can coordinate properly, right? And here's some more renders of it. But the one thing that we didn't have last year that we wanted to have this year is when we added the mechs, we thought that having some mech versus mech type of combat would be really cool to see in the game. So the wardens will have their own mech as well, and this is the Scourge Hunter. And the Warden Scourge Hunter, this is sort of the equivalent of a light or medium tank class of a mech. And this one's interesting because it actually has a weapon that is quite unique in the game. It's a quad RPG launcher. And this is sort of the first time that we sort of had this automatic RPG weapon in the game. This machine is definitely more. It moves faster. It's more agile than the Centurion, and it also has a quad barrel FMG, and it's a crew of 4. It's a little bit easier to crew than the Centurion, but it is also lighter in health, and it's a bit easier to take down. But we're hoping to see more of these. And again, going back to before I move on, there are these renders of the back, but the thing that's going to be really cool to see is the mech versus mech combat. And like we said every year for the Dead Harvest event, it's as much as like we I'm not going to lie, it's a fun thing like for us too, and it's a chance for us to sort of do an alternate universe on Foxhole and sort of like play out our fantasy of having like a mech game, which is what a lot of us are really like excited about. But we feel is not appropriate for the main line of the game. So this is, I'm not gonna lie, this is a part of us just being, hey, it would be cool if there was
we had mechs
combat, and Dead Harvest just happens to be like the excuse for us to have that in the game. So I really like that quad RPG launcher in the bottom right screen.
It is so ridiculous.
Yeah. And I think that is it for. Oh wait, there's one more thing.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
The best thing.
The best feature this year is that the shotgun has received a buff, and it actually is the anti-cursed weapon in this game. So it's the one weapon, the one small arms weapon that has been that specifically does extra damage to the cursed. So look out.
You can live out your Evil Dead fantasies.
Yeah, the shotgun is making a comeback, at least for one more. So
this was our long game. This is why we waited so long.
Yeah, this is why. Yeah, now you know, right? Never question us again.
Don't say that, Mark. That's just inviting so much hatred and vitriol. Jesus Christ.
Somebody's going to pull up that.
Yeah. Besides the Dead Harvest event, there's some other important changes that are coming, and I believe that the update number I have there is incorrect, so just ignore that. But other features that are going to be coming in this update. The first one, it changes to the tech tree. We have heard your feedback, and while we're still evolving the tech tree, we want to take a couple of steps to address some of the issues that players have been bringing to our attention. So the sum of research accumulated in a level is now used to unlock tech. So one of the biggest feedback we've heard is that the tech splitting that is happening is causing issues with players. Sometimes not when players aren't in agreement on what to research. It sort of gives a negative feeling for the whole team because they feel like their faction is being slowed down. So what we do now is we say that all the research that is put into tech in a level will be summed up and used to determine when that level is unlocked. As opposed to, okay, if you split your tech, now that tech is wasted, right? And we hope that this is a step in the right direction to address that feedback that we've heard like a whole lot about. And this next one is an interesting one for the folks that have been around a long time. Some changes to the refinery. So resources can now be submitted to a refinery queue, even if there is a existing complete order. So for the longest time, you couldn't do this. There was a workaround that you could use to do this. But what we want to do is, once we had the reserve stockpile system in place, we wanted to unify the refinery to behave much more like the reserve stockpile. So basically, you can use the refinery queue now in a more flexible manner. You don't have to, if you get to your refinery queue and the order is complete, you don't have to go through a bunch of gymnastics to submit more resources to that queue. But the caveat is that if you don't interact with your refinery for over 2 days, then the contents are transferred to the public stockpile. So this is, again, to bring it in line with the reserve stockpiles. But if you're playing the game, this should basically be a net improvement for you, because you don't have to go through the gymnastics and like you should just be able to do exactly everything you were able to do previously. So that's the two changes coming in the next update. And I think for real, that's
Q&A,
it.
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Send your questions in. We have one to start. So
I just wanted to. I saw a bunch of people in chat. Some people were like, "Oh, so this is very different from regards to Dead Harvest. Very different from last year and the year before, because now it's not a third faction." So yes, just want to clarify that it is like that. There's a reason why it's like that. I mentioned this on the previous dev streams, but we were even unsure if Dead Harvest was going to happen at all for us in the development, because of the development cycle, because where we are in the game right now, changing a lot of the code, the underlying code, is much more complex and could potentially affect much more things, many more things. So the reason why Dead Harvest is completely integrated with the Conquest is because, well, otherwise it wouldn't happen. So we really wanted to bring you guys something that was interesting, and we love the lore that, like, well, they weaponized the zombies, sorry, the cursed. Let's see what happens when we actually give them the curse as weapons.
and that's you guys. You guys did that.
Yeah.
So it's your. So I mean, the one thing I will say is we've always done something for Halloween since the beginning of Foxhole as well. Halloween has been the one holiday where we've always had something. Even before Dead Harvest, we had something. There was some hidden lore, and there was set dress, like we dressed it up with like pumpkins and stuff. We've always done something. So there's no way we weren't doing something. But so I'm glad we're able to do what we were able to do. So the first question we got came ahead of time. It's from Minibar. Will we see a lighter version of satchels? For example, Bangalores to blow up trenches or bunkers, or any other kind of utility sort of explosives like that?
Yeah, I think that something I would really like to see us move towards is small arms not being effective against any structures at all, because it's many players have pointed this out to us, and we like agree with that piece of feedback. Is it's really not realistic at all. Like, how can you shoot down a structure with your rifle or like your SMG? So I think that when we do hopefully make that change, we will have to introduce some new weapons to take the place of small arms shooting down structures. And I think at that point in time, we will take a look at some of those weapon ideas that were just mentioned there. And I guess beyond, like, besides that, I think those weapons are just exciting to us in general, and they are things that are on our mind, and they were mentioned in many meetings over the last while. So
Bangalore just makes sense as well.
yeah.
Hectic 001 asks, do kills heal you as a zombie? I actually don't know the answer to this one.
No.
That was what happened before, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, another thing, there was another question on the similar vein. If you die as a curse, do you come back as a curse? No, you come back as a regular human, and then you go back to your spawn, or just like you would normally if you died without a soul stone.
Dark Plasma Ray asks, can you please explain more in depth what tech tree splitting changes mean? I didn't understand. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good point. So basically, if you have the example I can give is if you have three types of tech in a level in the tech tree, and two of them are filled up 30% or 33%, and then the last one is filled up to 34%. Then it'll unlock the one that was filled up to 34%, as that will be like the unlock tech. So it counts the other ones that have been contributed to that level, and it just picks the one that progresses the most at the point when the sum of all of the tech is equal to like the required amount. That one that has the most becomes the tech that is unlocked. So it's essentially the same as before, except that the extra research effort isn't wasted now, right? So you don't hopefully players will be less upset if because knowing that when you put progression into something, it's still going to count for the overall progression.
UWC Bear 44 sound like a radio station. Will the tier 2 zombie the Averthac will it have infinite spitting ability? Yes.
So does the tier 3 can also infinitely the ground slam, but there is a cooldown on it because of course.
These are creatures. so they don't play by the ammo rules. Let's get a good one. Captain SHPEE. Will there be a comeback for relic weapons, vehicles, and other relic stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I think relics is like the Dead Harvest event. It's kind of similar to us in that it is a tradition we want to keep around, and we would like to bring it back. Several times a year, maybe once or twice, maybe more. We know that the last time that it happened was about half a year ago, and then before that it happened in last winter update, and I think you can kind of expect it to return at some point in the not too distant future. Because and like the Dead Harvest event, what we would like to do moving forward is every time we expand on it just a little bit, we bring it back, and then it will be kind of like the same but something fresh, right?
Just one random ace asks, will there be female wardens and colonials? You're 3 years late with that question. We've had them in the game for years. I feel like this comes up a lot. I guess people don't know because the profile screen is maybe a little hidden. But if you go to your profile screen, you can change your gender and put in like a different portrait and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is I think the UI is kind of crappy, so we'll have to make that.
Yeah,
it's something we've always wanted to improve.
There's also a model.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
also
that
a female
changes
model, but nobody sees it because it's so
because it's far
top
away.
down.
That changes your character model as well. You'll notice female character models are just a little more slight than the males, but there's not really that much of a difference from.
I think they
camera
noticed
angle.
because of the front image that had like the female version of the
Yeah.
chorus, and they're like, "What?"
Ah.
Yes.
This is an interesting question from Kelmoir. A very frequent question asker. Can we expect downgraded but cheaper variants for vehicles for situations when Logi is struggling? So, like, in my opinion, is that like it kind of sounds like mass producing prototypes almost.
That's an interesting one. I actually, we did talk recently, Max, about having the idea of lower cost vehicles. So I'm gonna shamelessly pass that one over to you.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about it. I think the challenge, the big challenge for us for determining new vehicle variants has been to we want each vehicle to feel unique enough that it has its own personality and its own role, but not so much that it just feels like a brand new vehicle. So somewhere in the middle there, it's like if you just take a truck, for example, and you say, I want to make a cheaper truck for when logistics is struggling, is that going to feel like something different? Or is it going to be that players just use this cheaper truck because it's cheaper than the other truck? And there's no clear answer to that. So we have to find a spot where we feel like it's just different enough that there might be some cases where this stripped down truck might be more useful versus the one that's built up. And yeah, so I definitely don't want to take it off the table. It seems like something we could do.
13 Thargy asks, will we get a buildable / movable light source? 50% of the game is night, so wouldn't it make sense to have that other than vehicles? I mean, there are flares, and I think there's a technical challenge a little bit with that that makes it a little tricky. Though we do have lighting in trenches. Granted, the radius is like comically small, so like that's not really going to light much up for you. I think the initial thing that we had that was a problem with lighting, we did originally have like some lamp that you could build in like the first version of the game, if I remember correctly, but that was bad because it would get spammed, and when that happens, everything lags. So one of the things that was a struggle is we wanted light sources. So say we had like a floodlight, because I feel like that's what people are kind of talking about. If you just a big floodlight that you could like move, was that it would like break the. We wanted to like break the fog. And so we actually do that with flares. It illuminates the fog and makes everybody visible. So I don't think it's like impossible. I think this technical challenge of like what happens when people build 16 of these in the same spot. What happens then? Because the flares are extremely optimized. You can't spam them because like optimizations will happen. So it's a little trickier when it's static and not just like a particle effect or something. So I think there's a couple challenges there. I don't know, Mark, if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I think that we can consider it, and like we can, like other things in Foxhole, we can find clever ways to work around it on the gameplay side as well. Like for example, maybe we do allow something, but we prevent players from spamming it, right? Like you can't build them too close to each other, or I don't know if that's the best solution, but things like that. But I love the idea of being able to make lights. I think that naturally feels like a Foxhole thing, and I love the flares. At first, I thought like we questioned whether or not they'd be used, but they're not used like that often, but they are used. Like I've seen them a couple times in the last war, and I would like to push into that a lot more. I think in general these like I guess it is a combat related thing, but it's not like a gun you're shooting. I think we've always loved to put these sorts of like support type of equipment in the game, like things like a radio, the idea of like a radio backpack, the idea of like lights, the idea of utility equipment, I think is really exciting to us because it separates it from like most other World War II games where it's just like a million guns, right? So that sort of stuff always kind of has a place in our heart, and yeah, I hope we can expand on it.
You know what I really love about that question was like when he said that like night is only is 50% of our game. It wouldn't it be cool if like over like if you could have a war in like the summer and the night wasn't as long, or you could have a night in the winter where it was longer. I think that'd be cool.
We could probably also we could probably make night not 50% as well, because there's not 50% of the day. But anyway, I digress.
Right, so we're gonna make night like even longer, right?
Yeah,
Is that what you're hinting at?
exactly. Daytime is only 20%. You got like 2 hours of.
Because the Foxhole universe is actually like in a place in the world that only has a very short cycle.
There's a very small moon.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna ask a couple more questions, then we're gonna call it.
Actually, I do have a question that I don't think it has been brought up, but I think we ever mentioned. When is the Dead Harvest event going to be available for people to play at?
Great question.
Great question. So it's going to start after this war, and we think that it will be next week. So we'll have more news on this soon, but we can probably next week would be a good a strong possibility. And yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. So
cool.
I do have a question that I kind of want to bring up because we talked about it earlier, and I feel like it's a fair question, and but I want to ask it anyway. Laharl asks about the Devstream format with 1.0 looming in the distance. It's more like on the horizon. Do you consider splitting the Devstream and community highlights into different streams so that people who want to be informed can watch that stream and people who like the community stuff can watch that stream? And obviously we brought this up earlier, and I just want to know what you guys think about it. I know what I think, but I'm curious. Let's just have this conversation.
Community highlights. I wouldn't mind. I kind of do enjoy the fact the whole thing of community highlights. I think I brought it up to be done in the dev stream initially, like back in, because the whole idea was to bring up the community as to like, what is the community doing? See here, you can be a part of it. You can be part of this group of people that love the game or hate the game, but anyway, interact with the game one way, shape, or another, and see what they're doing. Because there might be a lot of cool stuff that people are doing that you might not be aware, and that's why we bring it together. We try to be very clear. Community highlights it's always in the beginning, and then there's the dev stream because of that, because we know that some people don't like it, and that's fair. That's why on the YouTube replays, I also put like I tag the different sections so that if people choose to move forward, that's fair. So I don't know. I am like 50-50 on the idea. Conceptually, I wouldn't have a problem, but like in my heart, I kind of like making sure the community highlights still exist.
You guys have thoughts?
Yeah, I have I'm on the opposite side of that. I think I really like seeing the community highlights, and not just because I do them myself, but what the story I have from my brother. He was very young at the time. We used to play games together when we were 8-9 years old, and I remember one of the devs for one of the games, Asheron's Call, Turbine Entertainment. They used to go through the forums and collect all the community art. My brother, like again 8 years old, created some little piece of like art where of an Olthoy, one of the characters in the game, and he did it half jokingly, thought it would be really funny, and they posted it up there, and then the devs posted it online. And man, I remember he thought it was just hilarious, but I also know how much that impacted him, and that's why it's important to me. I think that community highlights is an important part of like really recognizing the people that make our game great, and really, I don't know, just I don't know. It makes me feel better about myself and making me feel like I can give back maybe at some chance, some small a little bit like those devs at Turbine Entertainment. It's the kind of people I would like to be.
I think that one thing that we can do potentially, and this is something that we can discuss internally, is perhaps making community highlights a more strict format. Like, oh, these are the top 3 things that we as devs thought were amazing every 2 weeks, and then everybody knows it's like only 3 things we know, and then people can also try their best to get there. We could potentially do something like that. I think that as we go towards a 1.0, that might be more necessary, or
Mark,
not.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I definitely want to keep it. I am happy to discuss changing the format, like HB mentioned. I'm definitely up for exploring how we can change it, but I don't want to get rid of it because like it's the community is we've had such a legacy of the community being such a huge part of the game from the first day, and I think if we did that, it would just it wouldn't be Foxhole anymore, right? It would be weird. And I think for me personally as well, it's it, working on a game for as long as we have like this. It's like you tend to get uh there's like ups and downs, and it requires it's a grind at a certain point, right? It's like you're kind of working on the game every week of your life.
This is
and
by far the
there's-
longest project any of us have worked on, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it's a it's a mental grind, right? And I think that anything that sort of gives you a fresh mind or kind of like reminds you of like what can be cool in the game helps you with that grind. And seeing the community highlights gives you that shot, right? It's like it kind of hits you. It's like this is so cool. These people are excited. Like they're making all this really cool stuff. Someone built like a Lego set out of this vehicle that like Julian like designed, or someone made a cool video. Someone did some lore or wrote like a newspaper that is supposed to be from this world, and it kind of gives you that that shot, right, where it just kind of hits you, and then it kind of like okay helps you with like the mental grind, right? And I think for me personally, maybe I'm being a bit selfish, but besides it being a tradition and something I don't want to get rid of, I also feel that it means a lot to me on that level, right? And if we were to slowly get rid of that, I think that would be a loss for the team, as much as it would be a loss for like you guys, right?
So I'm not gonna belabor the point because I think you guys all made great points, but the community and everything and the passion that they put into the game is why the game is able to continue. So that is development as far as I'm concerned. So it's hard for me to separate it being like a separate thing. It's part of the game. Like it's part of the world. We say it all the time, like you guys are part of the game. And we don't do these just to talk to ourselves. So
Dead Harvest this year is it's an absolute like reflection of a response to what happened last year. So
okay, so I'm gonna ask one more question because we did go a little bit long on that, and then we'll call it a day. And if I didn't get to your question, it's not because I hate you or I ignored you. It's because either the question was asked or I just didn't get to it. So I just want to find a good one here. This came up a bunch of times from a whole bunch of people, so instead of crediting someone, I'm just going to ask, will there ever be a mechanic to like remove trees and bushes to help for bunker building?
Oh, please.
I don't. Realistically speaking, I don't think in Foxhole we're gonna get that, right?
I mean, it's entirely. I do think it's entirely possible. It just is there's a tech problem.
It's a tech problem.
It's also a bit of a map design thing too.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that side. Like we put bushes in certain locations, like strategically when we want cover and things like that.
Right. I think the thing that I do want to throw in there though is that a year ago, I would have said that that's like not technically feasible, but I've seen some of the experiments that Casey did around this,
There's some magic.
and I think it could happen technically. Whether or not it would happen gameplay wise is another story. But man alive, there's some pretty neat shit that I've
That was like
I've
that
seen
was
from
like
that, yeah.
that was like my number one feature request back when I first started here was like I wanted tanks to roll through a forest knocking down trees. I think that would have been
That
so
one
cool.
is a little harder.
that was like
That's a
3
little
years ago.
different. That's a little different, but yeah, I think technically we would be able to probably pull it off. Would it be worth the effort? And would it fit the gameplay goals? Is kind of another. We'd have to think further about it. But
some of the maps are designed to like have like heavily forested areas that are harder to, build in and stuff. So that can be tricky, but I don't think that's not like a deal breaker though. I think that could be adjusted very easily. So
We'll just have realistic regrowth mechanics.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like
it's more problematic in a conceptual level if what does that change the gameplay. We would have to like take a serious look on how we adapt the gameplay to the concept of now you being able to technically build everywhere and being able to open paths and stuff like that you didn't before. I think that's more problematic. The technical side, sure, it might not be straightforward, but after trenches, man, I'm sure we can figure out any fucking trench.
I was gonna say though, like trenches have the same problem, HP too. Like until you actually get it in there.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not a problem.
Not from the technical, but I mean, not from a technical standpoint. Even from a gameplay standpoint, it was like, who knows how this is gonna work? So
no, but we always wanted trenches. Like from the very beginning, we were very bummed that we never had them. I think that we never, Foxhole as a game, we never had a strong desire for like having the bushes be burnable or not, or destroyable or not. It would be cool, yeah, but I think it's different. It is a little bit different on a game design aspect. And right now, like it or not, we are gearing up to 1.0. Is it the time? Maybe for like Foxhole 2.0,
well,
1.5, maybe. I'm not saying never. I'm just saying like I think there's more considerations than just the technical. In several, it's more important than just the technical.
Yeah, and I think that like I'll close off with this. Like, even if something doesn't happen at 1.0, it also doesn't mean it'll never happen. Like I keep saying this. Like, sure, a couple of things are gonna be like 1.0 is going to be a couple of things that are different. But I would say most of it after is just going to be the same as it is now. Like it's not going to be this big like paradigm shift or something. It's like we're still going to work on the game. We're still going to be excited about new features. We're still going to do stuff that is cool. All 1.0 is that like, okay, we probably is an excuse for us to go around and knock off some things like localization, right? It's like we probably want to avoid flipping the tables, changing the entire game mechanics like every other update. That's another thing maybe that might change. But outside of that, like if we think things are cool, we're gonna do it. If we think that having a better like naval game is cool, hell yeah, of course we're gonna do it. If we think adding other cool stuff that people like talking about a lot, yeah, I don't see why not. So definitely happen.
All right, sounds good. That's gonna be it for today. Sunships, I was looking for your dumb question, but your question was too dumb, so I couldn't ask it.
I answered. Don't worry.
Okay, great. So you went too far. That's gonna be it. HB, why don't you take us away?
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, for asking questions. We have these dev streams every 2 weeks on Tuesday, 2 p.m. EST at Discord. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Twitch.tv/Foxhole game. Join us in our community on discord.gg/Foxhole. We do archive these streams on our YouTube, which is youtube.com/Foxhole game, /Foxhole game. Damn it, I don't remember anymore. And we do have a Reddit as well, a Reddit community that is very active. So /r/Foxhole game. Yeah.
All right, thanks everybody, and
Join us next week, me, Matt, and Max, at Wednesday, 6 p.m. EST on twitch.tv/Clapfoot
for Clapfoot After Dark.
for Clapfoot After Dark.
Any other final thoughts for you, Max and Mark?
Nope.
Okay. All right, everybody.
Fantastic devcast.
Devcast. I kind of want to call this the town hall, but anyway. Stay foxy.